If you take away the concept of reincarnation, it's just exciting to approach relationships from the standpoint that I am encountering this person because there's something that I need to learn. And then when you add on reincarnation to that, it becomes deeper. The whole thing becomes deeper from my perspective. But you don't need it to still have that be an idea and a concept that you can work with and grow from.
Now, many people have said, you know, I believe in reincarnation, but I don't think I've ever had any past life recall. And really, most of us, most everyone has had past life recall of one kind or another. And it works like this. How often have we met someone for the very first time, and we really like that person, and we had no basis for that, we just met them? Or conversely, we meet someone for the very first time, and something about that person really drives us crazy. We feel unhappy. We feel tight, closed in, just by looking at another person. We don't want to be around that person any longer. Cayce would suggest that basically we have memories, experiences with every soul with whom we're going to come in contact. And when we meet that person again, what we do is we pop in the memory and we think, aha, there's so-and-so, and this is how you feel about them. We pick up our relationships exactly where we left them off. So all of our relationships of any kind of emotional importance, positive and negative, are a soulmate relationship, and they're an ongoing relationship.
Well, if a person comes to me and doesn't believe in past life theory, in reincarnation, I feel like they could benefit from the technique if they're willing to do it. Once a person quiets down and gets some impressions from inside, they will see that they also get feelings that go with the impressions. And those feelings make it very real what comes to mind. I do think that if they don't believe in reincarnation, it might set a seed that says, why not? Maybe this is a possibility.
The journey of the soul, as it's described in the theory of reincarnation, is enacted on a cosmic scale. It stretches us to think of ourselves as far more than ordinary physical beings living here on earth. Many ancient religious traditions and modern spiritual philosophers invite us to see a fundamental principle, the continuity of life.
In the process of reincarnation, souls tend to incarnate in cycles and groups. For that reason, Cayce believed that we pick up our relationships with others exactly where they left off in the past. If we once learned unconditional love toward another person, then that's where we will begin the relationship with that very same individual in the present. Conversely, if there's someone with whom we've had an adversarial relationship in the past, we're sure to have to deal with feelings of animosity toward that person in the present.
Sometimes people will meet someone new and yet feel as though they know them. A man was out in the Southwest. It was the times of the gold mines, and he's panning for gold. And working alone, but one day he got bitten by a snake, and an Indian woman saw him from her own group. She saw him and went and saved his life. And they stayed together, and she went with him and panned for gold. In the old days, a flash flood came. He could swim, she couldn't. He got to higher ground. He never saw her again. She died. In the 70s, this man again is back in life, and he is in Arizona. He's at a party. He looks across the room. He sees a woman, and he just is absolutely taken by her. I mean, we call it love at first sight. When you go to check the story through regression, what we find is that woman was the Indian woman in the past life, and he did know her before.
If you want to look at the concept of reincarnation, along with what brings couples together, then the Edgar Cayce readings frequently said that people are drawn together repeatedly over past lives and in future lives, and that includes not only couples but groups of people who have worked together, and family units who have changed their roles with each other.
One woman had difficulties with her son. She had very different philosophical ideas than he did. She was very interested in the Edgar Cayce information. She was very interested in past lives. She got past life information on herself and various members of her family. And one of the people she asked about was her son. Her oldest son was a conservative minister. He thought his mother was crazy. They had very different philosophical ideas about how things worked. And she asked about him. She wanted to know why there had always been this contention between the two of them. Not just about the Cayce philosophy, but ever since growing up, they seemed to have different ideas about things. Cayce responded and told her that this young man had been a co-worker of hers in ancient Egypt, and the two of them had had very different philosophical ideas. Well, because that's where the relationship had left off, that's where it picked up again in the present. And so when she asked about, well, how can she help him come around to her way of thinking, Cayce told her to forget about it, to just love him unconditionally, and eventually, if he asked her questions, then she could answer them, but not to try to force her ideas on him. Well, interestingly enough, eventually this young man, this minister, had a very severe problem with allergies. And he had been to traditional doctors and wasn't getting much relief. So kind of as an aside, one day her mother mentioned, you know, why don't you get a reading from Mr. Cayce and see if he can help you? Well, the young man was at his wit's end. He was really suffering badly from allergies, and he decided to go ahead and get the reading. The reading was given. He followed treatment for a few months, and when he felt so much better, he thought to himself, you know, maybe there's something about this Mr. Cayce after all. So eventually that young man got a past life reading of his own, and in time, the mother and the son reconciled their perspectives on the way things worked, and there'd actually been a healing that had not taken place for thousands of years. Cayce's perspective on our relationships is that we need to learn how to heal every one of our relationships with whom we're having difficulty.
Each lifetime provides the soul with a series of lessons which need to be learned for soul growth. Those lessons often come to us in the form of other people in our lives. Free will enables an individual to decide whether or not she or he will learn in the present what is next on the soul's educational agenda. But from Cayce's perspective, a lesson will be repeated until it is mastered. It isn't so important to know exactly who we've been in the past. What counts is focusing on the present and the relationships, challenges, and opportunities that we have right now.
Any person that we have a strong reaction to, positive or negative, then we are encountering them for a reason. And the reason often is to help us grow.
Lots of times we have experiences, or Cayce might call them lessons, that we need to experience for soul growth and personal development. And those lessons come to us oftentimes in the form of personal relationships with other people. For example, a gentleman came to me and he said that there was someone at work that he really didn't like, a woman, and to his dismay, other people in the office really liked this person. So in doing some personal reflection, he decided that this very same personality character had been at 2 previous jobs, and he had tried to avoid them as well in those other places. He decided that perhaps there was something for him to learn in this situation.